Can I hear a oh?
What an honor to be here tonight. My name is Road Webb. My mother was Tamalpais Miwok, and it's a special honor to be here, to honor Mount Tamalpais. As many of you maybe already know, Tamalpais is a Miwok word. Tamal is a direction word, means west or coast, and Pais means a mountain or the hill, so it's West Coast Mountain. Those names were around. Tamalhuya was Point Reyes. Tamaliwa was the bay, Tamalpais Bay. And Tamalpais itself is Anglican version of that. And the people who were there in West Marin were called Tamalco, or the people of the West Coast. I think tonight we're all Tamalco. Ho! All right, so I'm reminded in 1990, great evolutions in our social consciousness. They passed the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. And what this essentially said was to the universities and the museums and other public-funded agencies that keeping the bones and the remains of indigenous people was no longer cool. So you have to send that back. So that began a process that's still going on today where they counted up all these remains and funerary objects and articles of ceremony, and they were sending them back to the tribes, to the people. So you'd think they would be all excited if we could get all our stuff back. But actually, it offered another problem. When the elders said, when that was first happening, he says, I just don't know. He says, we don't have songs for reburial of these things. I don't know how I could protect you when you're doing this medicine to put, is the only way to do is to put it back in the ground. And we don't leave the remains of our ancestors out in the rain. No people do that. So we have to accept that and put it back in a sacred way. And a lot of what his Gary Yost and these movies and this about these artists that are going up there, they're laying down this medicine to sanctify what has been desecrated. So Gary got a hold of me. I don't know how he got a hold of me, but he got my number somehow. And he asked me to come up there to Mount Tamalpais and look at this project he was doing, and asked me to write a song. It's a prayer for the mountain, and that was that song there that I shared with you this evening. The words of it, Kokoshut Maleya, Kokoshut Weya. It's the right eye of the great turtle, the right eye of the world. Well, to put that into context, perhaps some of you have heard of natives talk about Turtle Nation. Who's heard of that? Turtle, the Great Turtle Nation. Well, the anthrometrics of it, the tail of the great turtle is Florida. And then going down Texas and Mexico is the left leg, and Maine is the right leg, and the Baja Peninsula is the left arm, kind of a little arm. Going up to Alaska is the right arm. And then San Francisco Bay is the mouth of the great turtle. And Mount Diablo, they say, is the left eye. And Mount Tamalpais is the right eye of the great turtle. So we stand here in the right eye of the great turtle, the right eye of the world. Weya means world. It also means, it's a bigger word, it means like the spirit of all things. The next refrain, Shutliwa Kichulu, Shutliwa Maosu, means her tears are red. Shutliwa Maosu, we drink her tears. And this is to remind us that we suckle on the mountain's tears, bitter or sweet. We're the subjects of the mountain. I'm honored to introduce Jane Hirshfield. She's a current chancellor of the Academy of American Poets and visiting professor in poetry in Stanford. She's lived in Mount Tamalpais' view since 1979. She's the author of 8 much-adored books on poetry and winner of awards from Mill Valley's own Mill Valley Arts Award to national prizes. Her poems can be found in The New Yorker, The New Republic, and have been chosen for 8 editions of the Best American Poems. A great poet. Please, a warm round of applause for Jane Hirshfield.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. So, we're here tonight to celebrate the beginning of returning the West Peak of Mount Tam to its own conditions and its own choice-making. It will not be the same as it was, but it will re-find its balance, its beauty, its freedom from our interference. We will do the first work, removing the remnant structures, replanting, but the mountain itself will do the real work of restoration with its own rocks, microbes, and myriad beings. And this first poem I'm going to read reflects that thought. Optimism. More and more I have come to admire resilience. Not the simple resistance of a pillow whose foam returns over and over to the same shape, but the sinuous tenacity of a tree. Finding the light newly blocked on one side, it turns in another. A blind intelligence, true. But out of such persistence arose turtles, rivers, mitochondria, figs. All this resinous, unretractable earth. I thought I'd read you next a poem honoring one kind of restorative being that we see everywhere on the mountains, rocks, and trees. It's lichens, which only in recent decades have we begun to understand how fully it works as nitrogen fixers and soil builders, that the lichens are our foundational makers. For the lobaria, usnea, witch's hair, map lichen, beard lichen, ground lichen, shield lichen. Back then, what did I know? The names of subway lines, buses, how long it took to walk 20 blocks. Uptown and downtown, not north, not south, not you. When I saw you later, seaweed reefed in the air, you were gray-green, incomprehensible, old. What you clung to, hung from, old. Trees looking half dead, stones. Marriage of fungi and algae, chemists of air, changers of nitrogen unusable into nitrogen usable, like those nameless ones who kept painting, shaping, engraving, unseen, unread, unremembered, not caring if they were no good, if they were past it. Rock wools, water fans, earth scale, mouse ears, dust, ash of the woods. Transformers unvalued, uncounted. Cell by cell, word by word, making a world they could live in. When we look at the mountain, we see it because we also see its place in what receives it and is in turn shaped by it, the air, sky, an assay. A hawk flies through it, carrying a still twisting snake twice the length of its body. Radiation, smoke, mosquitoes, the music of Mahler fly through it. The sky makes room, adjusting its airy shoulders. Sky doesn't age or remember, carries neither grudges nor hopes. Every morning is new as the last one, uncreased as the not quite imaginable first. From the fate of thunderstorms, hailstorms, fog, sky learns no lesson, leaping through any window as soon as it's raised. In speech, furious or tender, it's still of passing sky the words are formed. Whatever sky proposes is out in the open. Clear even when not, sky offers no model, no mirror, cloudy or bright, to the ordinary heart. Secretive, rackety, domestic, harboring a wild uninterest in sky's disinterest. And so we look right past sky, by it, through it, to what also is moody and alters. Erosive mountains, eclipsable moons, stars distant but time-bound. Rock. What appears to be stubbornness, refusal, or interruption is to it a simple privacy. It broods its one thought like a quail her clutch of eggs. Mosses and lichens listen outside the locked door. Stars turn the length of one winter, then the next. Rocks fill their own shadows without hesitation and do not question silence, however long. Nor are they discomforted by cold, by rain, by heat. The work of a rock is to ponder whatever is, an act that looks singly like prayer, but is not prayer. As for this mountain, its meditations are slow but complete. Someday, its thinking worn out, it will be carried away by an ant. A Mystrium cameli, perhaps, caught in some equally diligent, equally single pursuit of a thought of her own. We live with the mountain as much as its lichens and insects and rocks and trees do, and the next few poems I'm going to read you reflect that. Bobcats, beetles, owls. We stood in the dark outside a door and talked in the scent of jasmine. 3 women standing at the foot of what? One mountain of 3 lifetimes' lucks and losses. The other actual and breathing above us in the dark. The year's new leaves and grasses were resting all around us. Somewhere above us, deer were sleeping. Bobcats, beetles, owls were sleeping. We spoke of neither mountain. We breathed in the scent of jasmine between words whose meaning didn't matter. Only the murmur mattered, going on. It was night. Deer slept, and bobcats. Our lives paused with us in the doorway, waiting. Vilnius. For a long time, I keep the guidebooks out on the table. In the morning, drinking coffee. I see the spines. St. Petersburg, Vilnius, Vienna. Choices pondered, but not finally taken. Behind them, sometimes behind thick fog, the mountain. If you lived higher up on the mountain, I find myself thinking, what you would see is more of everything else, but not the mountain. Dog and bear. The air this morning, blowing between fog and drizzle, is like a white dog in the snow who scents a white bear in the snow who is not there. Deeper than seeing, deeper than hearing, they stand and glare at one another. So many listen, lost, in every weather. The mind has mountains, Hopkins wrote, against his sadness. The dog held the bear at bay that day. Pocket of fog. In the next door yard, a pocket of fog like a small herd of bison swallows azaleas, koi pond, the red and gold koi. To be undivided must mean not knowing you are. The fog grazes here, then there, all morning browsing the shallows, leaving no footprints between my fate and the mountains. This next one is a very short poem. Mountain and mouse. Both move, one only more slowly. So our intention tonight is Mount Tam's full restoration, or as close we can help it come towards that. But I wanted to read you at least one poem acknowledging the past of the West Peak and its present, and to note explicitly that a part of that past has been crafted as military preparations for an unimaginable disaster that did not take place. Pompeii. How many houses become a living Pompeii, undusted, unemptied? Catastrophe is not only sudden. Hearts stop in more ways than one. Sometimes the house key is lost, sometimes the lock. Sometimes an ending means what did not knock. So the mountain was altered for our human uses by decision, by human decision. And now it is going to be restored by decision as well. So I thought I would read you 3 poems tonight that center on this theme of decision and choice making. The decision. There is a moment before a shape hardens, a color sets, before the fixative or heat of kiln. The letter might still be taken from the mailbox, the hand held back by the elbow, the word kept between the larynx pulse and the amplifying drum skin of the room's air. The thorax of an ant is not as narrow. The green coat on old copper weighs more. Yet something slips through it, looks around, sets out in the new direction for other lands. Not into exile, not into hope, simply changed. As a sandy track rut changes when called a silk road, it cannot be after turned back from. rebus. You work with what you are given, the red clay of grief, the black clay of stubbornness going on after, clay that tastes of care or carelessness, clay that smells of the bottoms of rivers or dust. Each thought is a life you have lived or failed to live. Each word is a dish you have eaten or left on the table. There are honeys so bitter no one would willingly choose to take them. The clay takes them. Honey of weariness, honey of vanity, honey of cruelty, fear. This rebus, slip and stubbornness, bottom of river, my own consumed life. When will I learn to read it plainly, slowly, uncolored by hope or desire? Not to understand it, only to see. As water given sugar sweetens, given salt grows salty, we become our choices. Each yes, each no continues. This one a ladder, that one an anvil or cup. The ladder leans into its darkness. The anvil leans into its silence. The cup sits empty. How can I enter this question the clay has asked? What we call things changes how we treat them. Call a mountain a radar station, you will treat it one way. Call it sacred, you will treat it another. I sat in the sun. I moved my chair into sun. I sat in the sun, the way hunger is moved when called fasting. Late prayer. Tenderness does not choose its own uses. It goes out to everything equally, circling rabbit and hawk. Look, in the iron bucket, a single nail, a single ruby, all the heavens and hells. They rattle in the heart and make one sound. And for the last poem, a blessing. And this poem was written for an actual wedding, but for tonight, I think it can also be heard as our own marriage to this sacred mountain whose life and fate we share in all its weathers and all its waters. For a wedding on Mount Tamalpais. July, and the rich apples once again falling. You put them to your lips as you are meant to, enter a sweetness the earth wants to give. Everything loves this way, in gold honey, in gold mountain grass that carries lightly the shadow of hawks, the shadow of clouds passing by. And the dry grasses, the live oaks and bays, taste the apple's deep sweetness because you taste it as you were meant to, tasting the life that is yours. While below, the foghorns bend to their work, bringing home what is coming home, blessing what goes. Thank you.